So good afternoon, everybody, and I hope you've been enjoying the second day of the festival so far. I think it's been a very interesting day again. Thank you all for joining us for this workshop. We've got Dan Pearson and James Parker from USP College here, and they're going to talk to you about how digital technologies can help address some of the challenges facing colleges and how immersive classrooms are enabling USP College to share expertise cross-campus and with other colleges. Just remember, if you'd like to post any questions, you can do so using the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Dan. I think we've got a little video first.
For students, what we try to do is to look at the most innovative, the most up-to-date teaching techniques and technologies, and then bring these into classrooms for students, giving them the skills to really sort of make a difference when it comes to applying for jobs, going for university courses in the future. The latest innovations that we have currently at the college, or that we've been trialling recently at the college, are in the fields of virtual reality, augmented reality and immersive learning. So augmented reality, we've worked quite closely with our maths department, so it helps students really get to grips and understand those tricky maths concepts. Virtual reality we've used a lot within our science department, so get students to really understand what a cell is, so they can dive straight into a cell, just really sort of enhance their knowledge. I'm a biology teacher, so we've had sports students over at our Palmer's campus, A-level biology students here at this campus, and we've done live heart dissections, so both students, both across all the campuses, can see that happening in real time. The room we're currently sitting in is our immersive room, and this allows us to use our best practitioners, our best teachers, to deliver sessions across multiple campuses. So all of the screens, we've got 5 screens in this room, and they're all fully immersive. So we've got interactive whiteboards, we can throw videos up on the screens, students can share work through the Wi-Fi in the room. So if a teacher's teaching, they can instantly see what a student across multiple campuses is working on, and then offer support with that. It allows us to, again, bring in experts from other fields, so from universities, from industry, and they can link straight into the room and deliver sessions to our students to give them those employability skills and that understanding of industry that they wouldn't get normally in a standard session. Key employability skills that our students get through using our immersive rooms are communication, so they get to talk up to their peers across campus using the technology. Presentation skills, so they'll be working closely with their partners, with their groups at the campus and across the other campuses to present their findings, whatever they've come up with in lessons. By using the technology, using the different immersive techniques we have, it really helps to sort of hone that, so they have that foundation to then go on and learn more in the future.
Okay, thank you, and hello everybody. Quite a strange setup, obviously not being able to see my audience, but hey ho, here we go. So the reason I wanted to show you that video to start is because it's quite difficult to try to grasp the concept through a static presentation such as this, because normally when I've presented to other colleges, other principals and such likes, they've come along to the USP campus and they've actually experienced the rooms firsthand. And trying to explain it like this is a bit like listening to an orchestra through a telephone. So we've got a couple of things installed for this session. First of all, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the concept and the journey that happened at USP. And then we are going to zoom you into a bit of a live session that's going to be taking place on the platform, in the rooms itself. It's not, obviously, you're going to have to use your imagination quite somewhat to try to grasp what it'd be like actually in situ in one of the rooms. But we're going to try to do it just to give you some level of a demonstration of what can happen. So next slide, please. Okay, so first of all, I'll just talk about where and why I embarked on this particular journey. So I started as principal and CEO originally at Civic College, and it was prior to a merger. So we merged with a sixth form college called Palmer's. And what I suddenly found is that our campuses were 13 miles apart, not very good travel links within that particular area. And actually, both the colleges had very similar problems and were both alike. Hence the reason for me coming up with this idea. So if we go to the next slide, please, I'll explain some of the issues that I had. And this will probably chime with a lot of you. So what I found upon taking on the merged colleges, first of all, I had duplicated curriculum. Both offered a large number of A-levels, but also a large number of applied general and vocational courses. Some differences, but lots of similarities. And both had the same sort of quality challenges, albeit I'd been at Civic a year longer, so it was a little more accelerated in the process. So there was a bit of a gulf forming between the two campuses. We then renamed it as USP College, and I suddenly found a situation where there was a lack of parity. So upon the merger, we had high staff to income ratios, again, something that sixth form colleges can chime with. There was inconsistent teaching quality in A-levels, and that inconsistency was more polarised between the campuses. So you could go and study law at the Civic campus, study law at the Palmer's campus with two different teachers, and the chances are the students at the Civic campus would come out with much better results and better attention because they were getting a better teaching and learning experience. That was causing me a lot of issues and a lot of headaches. As I said, the inconsistent parity between the two campuses. And I also had the situation of subjects with small numbers. Again, something I had to try to come up with something to eradicate. Again, something that everybody faces, no doubt. People with A-level provision in their portfolio. It's often the way where you're having to run with small, potentially loss-making groups for the greater good of the other larger groups, and you know the story there. And of course, huge teacher recruitment issues. So, I'd find I'd lose a psychology teacher or a physics teacher in one of the campuses, and then to try to recruit them would be nigh on impossible with the competition from schools, and also because of our proximity to London and the competition around that area. So it just wasn't. It was becoming very and more increasingly difficult to recruit teachers. Next slide, please. So the original vision to try to overcome those problems was to try to create an immersive space with a wow factor. I wanted some way to link the two campuses up so we could have two groups of learners, one on each campus, being taught by one lecturer, one teacher. Hence, overcoming my original problem of not being able to recruit a teacher. Prime example, two sets of law students, one at Palmer's, one at Civic campus. They both go into the immersive rooms and they're taught by a teacher from one of those campuses. They're taught live, real time, peer group learning can take place. But the design of the rooms had to be critical. Had to be lots of peer-to-peer. I didn't want to just go down the online route for obvious reasons. Online has its purpose, but it's only good for a certain amount of students, as you all know. And you lose a lot of the richness in the group work, the peer work, and the social experience. So I was determined to keep that. I wanted something with real high quality sound and vision. I didn't want a Skype experience or one of the other types of platforms that are out there and widely used. Bear in mind, I was going to be projecting students on huge 89-inch screens laid all around the room. So if I didn't get the sound and vision perfect, it would have been detracted. The quality would have been a poor experience and the vision would have been dissolved instantly. And also clearly you needed lots of versatility in the space without needing teachers to go in and be technical geniuses and lecturers. Obviously they'd need a certain amount of capability to use the room, but actually I wanted them to almost be able to go in without any hassle, set up and get going and learn basically in the space. And obviously what this was all intended to do was solve that teacher shortage, the cost base, give them greater economies of scale with groups. So that's where I set out. Next slide, please. Okay, so I've sort of talked a little bit about this, so we'll skip over this, and if we go to the next slide, please. Okay. What I also did, I should have mentioned as well, we have a campus, a smaller campus set up based in Docklands in London. So at the moment, we've got the 3 spaces linked up seamlessly. We have actually been using the immersive room space now for over a year. And this was after me trialing and erroring and making a whole host of mistakes. And those mistakes were costly mistakes. I first of all went down the route of using a variety of AV companies who came in, promised the world, said they could deliver. But actually what you ended up with was a high-cost video conference solution with limited versatility. And then as I started to expand the vision and said, right, I want to bring other colleges on board, more and more cost base was having to be ploughed into the rooms to make it work. So that original vision failed until I eventually whittled it down, refined, practiced, trialed, and we got to where we are now, which is actually some fantastic spaces. Yes, there's an outlay, but actually the outlay you'd save with not being able to recruit teaching staff and having one teacher with larger groups, so on and so forth, was, it paled into insignificance over time, the actual initial cost. It solved me geographical barriers, and I'm now at the stage, having used it, learned from a year and then ran curriculum for best part of a year through it, confident enough now to go out to other colleges, which we started to do, to say, come on, get on board, as well as helping you with your own campus issues. We could share teaching expertise, so we could expand the curriculum in a way that I've never been able to do before. So I've been in conversations with a whole host of colleges, all at varying stages of getting rooms installed. And what we will eventually have is a geographical network of skilled practitioners that we can tap into. So again, really beginning to help us expand, solve that teacher shortage, and also gain additional income if you're having teachers delivering out. So we're at the early part of that journey, and if anybody wants to know any more about that, please feel free to contact me and request more information. Okay, so if we move on, please. Next slide. Okay, I've sort of talked about some of the benefits, but some of the other benefits is the improved quality, because the best teachers can teach to multiple spaces. So therefore, I can retain the best of the best without having to have that situation where I have a weaker teacher and a stronger teacher delivering the same subject and getting that parity. There's a lot more consistency now across the campuses and at the college. And of course, it's saved a lot of money with travel costs, because I'm also using it for things like CPD, etc. Currently, we have 3 rooms, and I'm about to invest in 2 more because the pilots and the project's been so successful. So next slide, please. Okay, so how's it evolving? Next slide. Okay, this is where I talked about the mistakes I made. And what you will find if you went back to your sort of IT departments, etc., and you talked about this, lots of promise about, we could do this, we could duplicate this, we could replicate it. They couldn't. Again, you'd go to AV companies who promise the world, and you'll end up with high cost, over complex pieces of kit. For example, I had rooms full of all a state of the art Polycom setup, etc., which was nothing but problematic. And you needed a degree in technology to be able to work the space. Lessons I learned, never falter from that original vision. I let myself be value engineered down because of the cost of the hardware. So the room aesthetics and that feeling, they didn't have the wow factor. The space is now, students go in there and they look around at the space and they get a wow factor, and they don't feel shortchanged if they haven't got that teacher in front of them live, if they're at the other campus. I do have the luxury of having my teachers flip-flop between the campuses, so students will always get some direct presence with the teacher, but you're also going to have facilitators obviously in the space at the other end at a much lower cost per hour, clearly, than a lecturer. Okay, next slide, please. I'll just talk a little bit about the immersive classroom, but I won't go too much into it because you're going to see it you're going to see an example of it in a moment. So if we move on, please. Okay, so as I say, it's fully automated. There's no fussy control system. A tutor can go in, plug in the laptop, if you want to be as crude as that, and they can present. So one screen will always show the presentation content, and on the other screen, you'll always have the other group. So the other group can see exactly what the group in that particular space can see. So both campuses are seeing the same thing at the same time, and the boards at the sides are live linked also. It's vastly improved student engagement, I've found, because students are up, they're on the feet, there's lots going on, they're very active, and basically it's become an exciting experience for all, and the feedback's been very good. Okay, next slide, please. It's all hosted through VC, which is something that you may be familiar with. That's the sort of back end bit, so to speak, and that's Janet hosted, so it's on the Janet network. It's very secure. It's secure for all educational use of broadcast without the worry of anything dodgy happening and outsiders coming in and abusing. What can happen with this type of technology? It supports access across multiple rooms. You can also have additional functionality where you could be teaching 10 of the group and 4 of the group may be absent. However, they can still log in and watch the lesson from home. That's fine. Wouldn't want them interacting always, but you can have that functionality also. And in addition, all the rooms can be, every single session is recorded. So at any one time, if a student has to go back and revise something from year 1 of a linear A level, they can go back, they can find it, they can watch the session back. So it's got lots of additional benefits. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, I've just talked about it offers real-time collaboration, so I won't dwell on that. If we flick to the next one, please. Okay, this is just a little bit of feedback from some of the students. We've got lots, and we've been gathering lots of evidence about how students are learning in the space, what we need to do better. But on the whole, the feedback is very strong. Where you do occasionally get not very good feedback, it's not because of the space, it's not because of the room, it's because of the lecturer that's in the space. So obviously there is a certain amount of training, but a lecturer could still go in there, the same lecturer who'd be perfectly dull with a class full of students who you're working with, they could still go in that room, and of course they could be perfectly dull in the room with all the bells and whistles. But thankfully that's becoming less and less of an issue for us as we're progressing and really developing the teaching and learning at USP. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so COVID-19, how are we using it now for the continuity of education? Well, when all this happened, we were already in a very good place because we've been developing a lot of content. But one of the ways we've been using it is to have lecturers go in there. So maths, I'll give you the prime example. The maths lecturer has been going into the campus and beaming out the lesson to multiple students sat at home with a lot more functionality at the lecturer's fingertips to be able to push out different bits of content. So therefore, the lesson has been a lot more engaging. That's one way we're using it, and I'll tell you how we're going to be using it in a little more detail. If we go on to the next slide, please. So there's a couple of scenarios we can do. I told you I was going to get 2 more rooms. So with the scenarios, clearly, if you've got a group of, 16, one scenario is you can have half the group go to one space and the other half the group to another space. They're live linked with the lecturer. So clearly, you've instantly got social distance and measures in place there. I'm not talking about cross-campus necessarily. These could be rooms on the same campus. So that's one of our scenarios that we're looking at. If we go to the next slide, please. Sorry, I can't quite see that one, but that is a scenario where you would have 4 or 5 students live in the space, and the rest of the group are dialing in remotely. So they would see their peers learning, and they would also see what's going on in the room. So that's another scenario that we're going to be able to use it for. So it's given us that additional benefit. So there's a whole host of ways we can use it over and above the main purpose of linking 2 colleges together or 2 remote campuses, all being well and socially distancing not being a thing. As it is, it just so happens it's fallen into our hands, and we've got a whole bunch of additional cards in our pack to play now to help resolve the issues. Just go to the next one, please. Okay. Or another scenario is the scenario I just talked to you about, where you have a lecturer in the space pushing out lots of different interactive content to all the students in the group working remotely, all working from home. And as I say, the lesson would be recorded so they could watch it over and over again to gain more information. And next slide, please. Okay. Something else we're developing for that, which is maybe of interest actually, we're developing Flexi Kit, which are going to be lots of pods dotted around the college, which is using a set of equipment, which again means that the broadcast can be of a much higher quality and pushed out to students. Happy to share that with anybody at a later stage as well about how that's developing. That's slightly different to what we're talking about here with the immersive rooms, but it's just something we're gaining traction on, we're starting to invest in now. And the likelihood is that we're going to be in this situation till at least Christmas. Who knows? Okay, next slide, please. If you do want any more information, if you scan the barcode, okay, what that'll do, that will register your details so we can get in touch, and we can get in touch with you and answer any questions you have, or when things are lifted, you may want to come along to the college, which is fine, to one of our open events. You may want to link into the network that's being created and get a couple of rooms yourself so you can benefit from those aspects. But again, happy to help where I can to share the practice and share what we've learned and how we're developing. Okay, I think what we're going to do now is we're going to drop in to a live session, and then you're going to have the ability to speak and ask a few questions at the end. So I'll let you, hopefully it's all going to work well. So over to Christelle, who's going to drive this bit.
5 questions, all about the heart. I'd like you to have a go at answering them. What I'm going to allow you to do is within your rooms, you can talk to the other people in your rooms. So you might be able to also hear a few answers bouncing around. So if you're unsure about a question, just want to check it, chat to each other within your rooms, and then we'll see how you get on, and we'll go through the answers. Right, I'm going to say 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Let's see how we get on. You can start, guys.
First one.
What's the first question?
The heart attack.
What is it?
Heart attack.
Heart attack. How many is it?
Oh my god. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
listening.
what do we call it?
I'd like to know the type of blood vessel that brings blood to the heart.
What are the options? What are your options?
Okay, you can talk through, guys, in your rooms if you want, but as a plus, you've all got the first question right.
Yeah, but I've got the next two wrong.
Yeah, so you might need to you can go back
What was
and
wrong?
answer that question. So if you go back on your screen, you can have a chat.
What was wrong? I know
You can know, James, you can know sort of see which ones are wrong, can't you?
You can. So if you got it wrong, you can then check to see if somebody else in your room got it right.
Oh, I did. I got it the wrong way round.
So Liza on a bit of a winning streak there.
Takes it away.
And talk it through, guys.
I got it vein and artery around the wrong way. So I was right, but
Right, don't want to rush you, but I'm going to say 60 seconds, guys. So you're about halfway through.
What side of the heart contains deoxygenated blood?
50-50.
Oh,
What do you reckon?
what do you think? Okay, right.
I can't remember what I even put. Wow, it was wrong.
Yeah.
I've gone that. Oh no, I got it wrong.
Oh no. Well, if I just go left to right, if I just make one of them to see right. I went right and left. You go left and right. Then one of them.
Yes, it does, yeah.
Okay, right, time's up, guys, time's up. Let's go through the answers. So, Eliza, we're going to go through yours. So, the first question was, how many chambers are there in the heart? How many did you go for?
4.
Bonus marks. Does anybody know, either campus, what the names are of those chambers? Doesn't matter if you don't, because we will go through. Go on, Tasha, say what you're going to say.
No idea.
No?
I have no idea.
Kelly?
No.
No, Kelly? No, it's fine. We're going to come back to those. All right. So next question was, what's the name of the type of blood vessel that brings blood into the heart? Kelly?
Vein.
It is a vein. Kind of gives away the next answer, really, doesn't it? But type of blood vessel that takes blood away from the heart. Happy with artery, guys?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you heard of those other two blood vessels? So we've got capillary and an arterial.
I've heard of a capillary, but not an arterial.
Can you tell me anything about capillaries? Anything you know?
Are they in your lungs?
You do get lots of capillaries in your lungs, you're right. Palmer's campus, any other suggestions on capillaries? Heard of them?
Shaking of the head here, James.
No.
No. All right. So capillaries, those tiny, tiny little blood vessels, about 1 cell thick. You see them in your eyes occasionally. They're really, really, really small. So a lot smaller than
Like the little
your
red
arteries and veins. Yeah, perfect.
Interesting.
Okay. Which side of the heart contains deoxygenated blood? Palmer's campus, Tasha? You've got a 50-50, left or right? Deoxygenated blood.
Right. I went left.
Okay, the correct answer was right. So then, therefore, our last question was, which side of the heart contains oxygenated blood? And the answer for that one?
Left.
Left. Perfect. Right. What I would like you to have a go at doing is, on the whiteboards, you have a section with your name on, and there's a picture of an outline of a human body. In the little sort of section where your name is, I'd like.
Okay, everybody, I've just quickly asked for them to be put on mute, just to try to give you an example of what you're seeing here. By the way, they are fake students, they are PAs and people from marketing, just to give you an idea. Hence the reason that they are struggling with some of the answers there. Clearly, if they were biology students and what have you, they'd be ticking along a lot better. However, what you're seeing there is the two campuses. So on the left, I believe, is the CVIC campus. On the right is the Palmer's campus. They're all live linked, so as one is writing on the board, that's appearing at the other campus. So you can see the lady in the green top. As she writes, the lady in the black top on the other campus will see it appearing live. And I think that they're obviously labelling the parts of her body there. Obviously, they can all see and hear each other perfectly clearly. What you can't see, which is just out of shot, which is a shame, is those screens wrap around the whole room. So there's 2 on the front, and obviously there's the screens right the way around the room. It doesn't quite give the impression there, but if you use your imagination and imagine it's a 360-degree view, other than there's 2 larger screens at the front, which is just out of shot. Okay, thanks, Christelle. You can bring the sound back in now, please.
Oh God, I can't even do that.
Are they like that in the 4 bits, or are they not?
Yeah, they're pretty much
A little bit.
a quarter of each.
Mm.
I wouldn't say they're necessarily like that. This might be an
It's like that.
Just
I know,
literally, just line down the
4. Is it like a these you're
all the way
trying
to
to
the end, probably.
Oh,
Do you remember the deoxygenated blood?
Yeah.
One was left, one was right.
look at Mike.
I was going to say 2 minutes, guys. 2 minutes. Doesn't matter. Just draw what you can. If you can't remember much, just go with what we've said. You know, as a minimum, you've got these 4 chambers.
Like that.
Ellie's, yours is looking really good.
He's winning at the moment.
Oh, God. And then does it go out at the top or out at the bottom?
Out of the bottom, all the way. Left. And the ventricle. I'm not going to tell you what to say, you're going to guess. So they've got left and right ventricle, left and right ventricle. That's the 4 chambers.
Oxygenated and then out oxygenated.
And does it go in oxygenated or does it come out oxygenated?
No, it goes in. I don't know. I've written it wrong, I think.
It's got to be.
Did you get the oxygen in the heart or did the heart take the oxygen from
The heart takes oxygen, so I don't know where that is.
If you want, guys, you can label your heart right and left, because we did talk about which side of the heart has oxygenated and which side of the heart has deoxygenated blood in. So Ellie, you might want to label yours right and left if you're telling me one side is deoxygenated and one side is oxygenated.
Oh, left.
Which is the right and which is the left?
Yeah, did you see that?
You can undo on the top, but I think that might undo everybody. Just rub it out is best.
That's what it did rub it out, which is not what I wanted it
What is the
to.
ventricle? Which side is which?
Left.
Right, I'm going to give you a bit more time, guys, because you're actually doing quite well.
You've got a service there.
Well, I can't remember what they're called.
Atrium, like a bird atrium. So I did.
If you think you're done, just draw a line from your heart to the little outline of the person to tell me where you think the heart is located.
Draw your okay. Where do you think you're going?
Which side do you think?
Left.
It's about here, isn't it?
Oxygenated?
Oh, yeah.
You're correct. You're correct.
Oh, this is. Oh, is the left hand side actually there?
No, that's right.
It's not actually there. So these are.
All right. Time's up, guys. If you could have a seat again for me. Okay, it's not bad considering we know nothing about the heart. Ellie, what I'd like you to do is if you could talk us through your heart diagram. I'm just going to move my my
Can we
screen.
change to lecture view? Crystal asked.
I think it goes in on the left through the vein with oxygen in it, and then it comes out on the right. That comes out of the artery on the right.
Okay, so on your diagram,
Yeah.
you're saying that deoxygenated blood leaves the heart via an artery. Tasha, any suggestions? If deoxygenated blood is leaving the heart, where do you want it to go? So it's got no oxygen in it. Whereabouts would you want blood without any oxygen to go to next? Perfect. Yeah, you're right. So you do have arteries that take blood to the lungs, and that is deoxygenated blood. Good. So we've all got 4 chambers, and we've got the idea that we have blood vessels that are entering the heart. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw you a basic heart where we're just going to pull this together. So a little trick when you're drawing a heart is you've got 4 chambers. What I'll do, guys, I'll just make sure you can see what I'm seeing. So your board should move to where I am now. There you go. So trick with drawing a heart, you know there's 4 chambers, so you can start off by drawing 4 boxes. So you have to ignore my poor artistic representations. So 2 boxes on the top. Underneath, there's another 2 boxes, but these ones are a lot bigger. There's our 2 boxes underneath. And then what we've done straight away is we've split the heart into 2 sides. So we were talking about there's a left side and a right side. Which side carries oxygenated blood? Eliza?
Left.
Perfect. So when we're looking at labelling the heart, the first thing we probably want to do is label the right and left. So we've got our little picture. We've got 4 chambers, and I've drawn 4 little lines leading out or into our chambers, and they're going to be our blood vessels. So left and right, when you look at a heart diagram, the left and right is actually the opposite way round to what you're looking at. So if you think about this, any ideas why when you're looking at a diagram of a heart, you might want to see this side here is actually the right-hand side, and this side here is actually the left-hand side. Any suggestions? Have a little think about it. I'll give you a clue. Think about who needs to look at diagrams of hearts fairly often, potentially. Or who might have drawn diagrams of hearts initially. In your pairs. How many, how wide do you think the right side is this side and the left side is this side?
Is it because that's the way it would be in the body?
Perfect. So if you think about, if somebody was dissecting me now, they would cut sort of down here, and then this is my left-hand side.
Okay, we're going to leave it there because I want to leave some time for questions. So what we'll do, we'll pluck James out and he'll suddenly appear on the screen as well. So you can ask the lecturer direct questions. But I say you only saw a very short sort of snippet there, as I said, with some PAs in situ. A typical lesson would see small experiments happen on a visualizer, which would be projected up on a huge screen. A typical session would see something like Kahoots being sent quizzes to both campuses to use the board interactively to answer questions and what have you. Additional technology such as iPads, where James or whoever's lecturing there could put the content of any student's iPad up on the screens for all to see at any time. So there's lots of functionality in the room. The more advanced and technically able would use a lot more of that functionality, and obviously the less sort of able would still make for an active session, but use it for a more of a traditional sort of PowerPoint and have them then answering questions and doing group work and what have you. So I'll open the floor now to questions. I've answered a couple that have been popping up. So if there's any more now, and hopefully James will join us any second now. I think if there was any questions coming through, I believe Patricia was going to read them out, and then I can answer live. If I just repeat back a couple of the questions I've had so far. One was about what happens when you've got one teacher teaching a larger amount of students across two spaces, what happens with the work submission and marking, etc. But we've got obviously trained facilitators at a much lower cost than a lecturer who helps support, gathers work submission, obviously helps run the functionality of the other space, behaviour management, making sure things can be used, so on and so forth. Another question was about, are you getting a commonality of timetables where other colleges are coming on board? That's the aim, longer term. But at this stage, we're talking more about, for example, Barking and Dagenham College wants some further maths for their engineers. And we happen to be very good at maths, and we've got some capacity there. So we will beam further maths to Barking and Dagenham, for example. So we've sourced some time. We'll get some income to supplement that particular lecturer's salary, and it'll save Yvonne, the principal of Barking and Dagenham, having to go out to find someone she probably wouldn't be able to find to deliver further maths. I, can offer AAT to people. At one point, Belfast Met were going to come on board, and they were going to offer us some cyber security because we couldn't get cyber security teachers, and you get the gist. Okay, I think we've got a question there, Patricia.
Hi, thank you, Dan and James. Yes, we've got another question just come through from Mel. And could you see any problems with small take-up on practical subjects using this, for example, music or dance?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the more we tend to use it more for technical instruction, if you like. So you can do small experiments on it. So what I've seen, for example, is a small science experiment done on a visualizer, and then they'll go off and they'll work with lab technicians and report back. But generally, it is for theory, and it works best with theoretical subjects. We have had dance students in there mixed with sports students, cross-sharing some anatomy, for example, and looking at cross-sections of the body and what have you. But actually, no, it wouldn't lend itself as well, although I am experimenting with some field work being able to be beamed back into the rooms. So imagine somebody is on a rail track in a vocational setting, far too dangerous for students to go on it, but they could beam back what they're doing, and students could ask live time questions based in the room, and the person in the field could answer them live back. So there is uses. It's as far as your imagination can stretch, but really you're going to be talking about the theory, because to teach ballet or some performing arts group work or what have you would be slightly untenable because of the space, and you wouldn't want performers leaping around. Although the screens are very robust, I wouldn't fancy them leaping into one of the screens, actually. I hope that answers that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think you've done an absolutely valiant job of answering questions as we've gone along. So unless anyone has any more to pass through, are you willing to pick them up later if people want to get in touch with you directly?
Yeah, 100%. If people want to get in touch, as you say, you've got the details there, hopefully. I think we just got another question popped up there. So.
Oh yes, I've got one more I think we can fit in now. Do you have details of the software and hardware that's being used to facilitate this?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, what I'd do, I'm more than happy just to put you in touch with the company who'd supply it all. The only, we bespoke it. So I worked with two companies to bespoke it, refine it, boil it down and get it perfect. And now there's like a blueprint exists of the kit you need, what you need to get, and the backup software. So all the components that we've fine-tuned and we know now work, they've sort of got that blueprint. So yeah, they'll happily get in touch, share that with you, take you through it, and do all the bits you need to do to get on board.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dan and James, for sharing all your experience. And that was a wonderful demonstration of a class in action.
Yeah. Like you say, it was the PAs. Now, nothing to take away from their knowledge on the human heart and the functions, but clearly we've been studying it.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And for everybody else, the next session that we've got happening now at 4:15 is the closed session of the National Joint Council. So that's for SFCA members only. So if you're taking part in that session, if you go from the virtual hub, you'll see a link to the closed session on the panel on the left of your screen. Everybody else, I hope we'll see you back at 5 o'clock back in the main room for the awards ceremony, where we got the opportunity to celebrate some of the achievements across the sector. Awards are being presented by Robert Halfon, MP, Chair of the Education Select Committee. So I hope to see you there at 5.